Welcome to Eat, Pray, Love, Heal, Repeat. I am your host, Letitia, the social architect, and this is another space for your healing playground. We are here to talk about all of the things that lead to healing, restoration, and all that comes with being well as you learn to take your unique journey towards wholeness. This podcast is an authentic embrace, soothing realness, and conscious space to support the necessary transformation, spiritual awakening, and healing within and around you. So fall back, listen with intention, and open your heart and mind as you come into conversation with me on our continued journey to wellness. Hey y'all, this is Letitia, the social architect, here again to assist you on your journey to wellness as you learn to utilize the integration of your mind, body, and spirit. Welcome. Welcome to Eat, Pray, Love, Heal, Repeat. This is episode 3. This episode is actually part 2 of a 2-part series entitled The Emotional Pain Body. So during the last show, you were introduced to the pain body. So for those of you who haven't heard that show, you may want to go back and check that out, because this episode is just going to continue to build on to that topic. So let's get started and continue to explore the pain body. So, when I was suffering, I did not realize how often I fed into the emotional pain, that I was holding on to. Found out I was causing my body to become imbalanced. And I guess I need to explain. Let me explain that. So I still am, but I know how to manage it now. So I am a lover of psychological thrillers. I'm a lover of movies, but particularly my favorite is psychological thrillers. My favorite used to be horror, but horror just is not the same. It's just not the same. So those of you who are horror film lovers, you probably know what I'm talking about. These horror films they making these days. But anyway, I was a lover of horror movies. That used to be my first, but it has changed to psychological thrillers. I still do watch the little horror, supposedly quote unquote horror movies, but I also like watching a couple of the Housewives. Don't judge me. Okay. No judgment zone. So I also love a couple of the Housewives shows. And I would also get caught up in the ID channel. If anybody knows what the ID as in door, ID channel is, it was investigative discovery. And so it led me to, watching shows like Snapped and many of those cold case stories and unsolved crimes. I love those things. I still do. And I was relentless with them, it was relentless. But it wasn't until I began to go on my own wellness journey that I became enlightened and start taking control of ending my suffering, that I learned to, and I learned to sit in stillness too. And what I realized is that I loved watching those shows, but those shows fed into the pain that I was unconsciously holding within my body. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. There is a way to watch these shows in a healthy manner so that it does not impact you in a negative way. But back then, I didn't know how to do that. However, this can only be done by being in a place of emotional wellness. And what I learned is that, horror movies contain these psychological tricks, right? That's what they're supposed to do. So they contain these psychological tricks that create illusions of suspense and danger through the manipulation of images and sound and story. So although that is entertaining to me, I did not realize that it was also having an impact on my psyche and the layers of muddy emotion that were not being addressed, which was trapped and causing me to be sick, both mentally and physically. And we don't realize how much the intake, that's what I call it, the things that we watch, the people that we hang out with, communicate with, talk to, interact with, the things that we eat, the things that we listen to, read, these are all things I call intake. These are things that our bodies take in, we control, and we allow our bodies to take in. Well, what we don't realize is how some of those things that we read, eat, listen to, and people that we decide to interact with are feeding our pain body, because pain is coming from that source or that person. And so they kind of feed off each other. The pain feeds off of the pain. And sometimes you recognize this when you are amongst. I know I've talked to clients even in the past, and they've told me, especially in times like we're in now with the holidays, and people are with their families for a little bit during the holidays. So they would come back after the holidays, and we would have our session, and they would talk about some type of drama that had come up, something like somebody got into an argument or something occurred, a little blow up. And a lot of that is because it's a bunch of people in the same space that's been holding a lot of emotional pain that hadn't been properly released. And everybody is feeding off of everybody's pain body, and something ends up coming up from it that is not beneficial to anyone. And it just causes further tension and right and dissension. And so, so we have to realize that when it comes to the pain body, I also learned that it's important to know that although your brain is aware that the threats aren't real, when you are watching a psychological thriller, your body simultaneously registers suspense and thrill as a threat. Okay, let me say that one more time. So, let's put an example to it. Say that you were thinking about, say you had a fear of snakes, okay? You start thinking, now there is no snake around you. You're in the comfort of your home. There's no snake, okay? But you start thinking about a snake, okay? Now, your brain is aware that, there's no snake in the room. There's no actual real threat in your presence. But you sitting there thinking about a snake, it registers in your body as tension, as fear, as stress, as shock, right? Your body doesn't know the difference, only your brain. So your body is still feeling based on what you're thinking, which I'm afraid of snakes, and you just sitting there creating narratives around snakes, and your body is starting to build up with stress and fear and tension, right? And what happens is this can cause a release of hormones in the body. It causes a release of hormones in the body. And some of those are, I'm sure you've heard of some of these: norepinephrine, cortisol, adrenaline, all from the autonomic nervous system. Remember, we talked about that during our last show. And, your physical body is still reacting and taking in stress, from that thought of the snake that you are thinking about. And same thing goes for these, sometimes these thrillers, psychological thrillers, these horror films and things of that nature, some things that we read, the people that we talk to. Based on our interaction with those things, yes, our brain is not necessarily perceiving that thing or person as a threat, but our bodies is our bodies are taking in tension, right? Our bodies are taking in stress from those things. If those things are coming with something that's negatively impacting the body, such as stress. So your physical body, again, it takes in the stress from the thrillers and the horror movies and the suspense that you're getting from these movies. Whatever you're getting from it, it's causing a release of those hormones still, because your body doesn't know the difference. And so it's causing the release of adrenaline, and it's causing cortisol, and so that's why sometimes with scary movies, people they they have heart palpitations, something similar to heart palpitation. The chest starts, the heart starts beating real fast. They'll jump. That's stress on the body. Okay. So again, your physical body is still reacting. And if you are not mindful, this unconsciously takes your body into fight or flight mode. We talked about that last show as well. What fight or flight mode is and where it comes from. So again, if you are not mindful, this unconsciously takes your body into fight or flight mode. And then you wonder why you may not be able to sleep well. Same thing goes for people who scroll social media all the time. They're taking in all of this information, and most of it ain't much of nothing. People's lives that they're not really living, they're only showing the good part. So, they got you stressed and thinking you supposed to live like them too, when you might be living even better than them. But let me get off of that box. But what I do want to say is, there are often times where you're going to have problems sleeping if you continue to have that phone in your hand while you're laying in the bed, and your body wants to go to sleep, but your mind is not, because you got your mind going, it's running, because you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and wondering why you can't go to sleep. Put the phone down. Make that a habit. Try putting that phone down. For those of you who have problems sleeping, ask yourself, do I have a television on? Trying to go to sleep. Do I have the phone in my hand scrolling on social media as I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep? Your brain is going to continue, even though your body is tired as I don't know what. It's not going to allow your body to go take itself to rest. So we have to stop stimulating the brain when it's time for our bodies to rest. Again, that goes back to the importance of meditation, taking time out for stillness, taking time out to just be. So when you're, so we talked about being more mindful of the fight or flight mode that you can potentially take your body into. Oftentimes, you can notice physiological response from those hormones by way of like pupil dilation, increased heart rate, muscle tension. So when you start to feel these things, you can tell that your cortisol, your adrenaline is going up, right? So that tells you you need to calm down. If anybody of you have some of those smartwatches, I know I have one, and it'll tell me when I need to breathe. It's reading my body. It's reading my heart rate, tension in my body. It's reading that and it's telling me it's time to breathe. It's time to take a mindful moment. And I stop and I take some deep breaths. And that's what we have to do. Because our bodies are screaming. They want to relax. They want to rest. They want room to digest. Okay? And reset. And that may need to happen several times throughout a day. Being able to take a pause and reset before you continue on. Our bodies need that. That's why it's so important that workplaces give you some breaks, and you know what to do with those breaks. You should be resting. Not on social media, because that's not resting your body. True rest is just stillness and seeing what comes up, doing a body scan, see if you feel tension anywhere. So anyway, these are some of the reactions that can be experienced when experiencing anxiety that I just went over. And the same thing happens when we're taking in, information, as I said before, from a person as well, which is why we have to watch who we are around. You have to assess your groups that you decide to hang out with, be around for long periods of time, because they can also drain you and bring about stress and anxiety, and may not allow you to feel like you can properly rest. And you don't want to continue to add stress into the body, right? So that's something that we have to be mindful of. So what I want to do now is I want to show you something that share something that I actually drew up. And if you go back and you watch this on YouTube, you're able to see a visual. Then you'll be able to see what I'm about to explain as it relates to the pain body and how it gets fed. So for those of you that are listening through audio, I will make sure the link to this diagram is placed in the show notes so that you can go back and take a look at it when you get a chance to take in this information visually. Okay. So what you see here in the drawing, there's a person. It's kind of like a stick figure in red. And I use red because it's a color that gets our attention. It's kind of like alert. But you'll see this person, and what you see at the top says trapped energy that makes us sick. So this is a diagram of the pain body and how first we have to understand that we create this, like we create the pain body. The pain body cannot exist without us creating it. Okay? Because remember, the pain body is filled with stagnant emotions that are unresolved, those strong emotions that go unresolved. So we create it. So we have to first take responsibility for the creation of the pain body before we know to do something about it. All right. So next, we have to understand that it grows by seeking negative reactions. Remember when I was talking about our intake, we have to watch what we intake that goes back to seeking negative reactions. That's what the pain body does, but it happens unconsciously. It's not like we're consciously trying to seek out something that is going to cause us to be sick. No. Our brain and our body, remember this emotion is a full body system, and another part of our body is our subconscious. So our subconscious is not something that we necessarily have control over. So things are just happening. And so when we are, with these things that may cause stress, or with these people that may cause more stress on our bodies, the pain body detects that. If you got those emotions that are pent up, right? And it grows. The pain body grows. And when it grows, that's when we become diseased and start to have these various levels of mental health problems, etc. So then you have the mental static. The mental static creates false schemas. Schemas are just thoughts, another word for thoughts, okay? So the mental static in our heads creates false thoughts or schemas. That your ego creates the content. So our mental static creates false thoughts, right? And that is that narrative we're going to talk about on another episode. But that's that narrative, that script that we run through our mind over and over, that record. That's that mental static. And it's static because if you know static on a TV, you can't see anything. It's just making a bunch of noise that's agitating. That's why it's mental static. That's creating false thoughts, because from that tape, we're creating these thoughts that are not true. And therefore, the ego creates the content. So that leaves room for our ego to create content. Now, real quick, let's talk about the ego. So the ego, I'm going to come away from the diagram for a moment. The ego, everyone has an ego. All right. If you're a human being, then you have an ego. There are many definitions of the ego, but to put it simply, it's your sense of personal identity and feelings of self-importance. And it helps you identify your uniqueness and stand up for yourself. And it puts plans in action. It helps you put plans in action. It is, however, incredibly important that you notice how your ego impacts your decisions, as it can be a negative influence. Okay? If you can think of a time when you've done or said something that had negative consequences, this was your misguided ego at play. So your ego's job is to feel important. Its survival depends on it. It unfortunately, this translates to your ego needing to fight and defend itself. That's what the ego does, because it wants to feel important. And it seems counterintuitive, but the ego needs negative situations to arise so it can have something to do, something to worry about, something to change. So if you're happy and everything is perfect, your ego already is looking for an issue to cling to or drama to create. That's the ego. Okay. We'll talk more about the ego later, but on a later show. But I wanted you to have an idea of the reason that we have to be mindful of the ego when it comes to wellness. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our diagram. Okay. So let's go over to the right side of the diagram where we talk about fight or flight. Okay. So if we look at over to the right, we see that the body reads worry and danger regardless of the situation. it doesn't know the difference. So that's what I was talking about when I gave the example of the snake, right? Or watching the movie, the psychological thriller or the horror movie. The body reads worry and danger regardless of the situation. Okay, it doesn't know the difference. That's why you get so anxious when you are sitting in the comfort of your home and nothing is going on but the thoughts in your head, but you feel like you're about to have an anxiety attack. This is the reason. And we have to learn to accept what arises in you rather than run, wanting something to be different. So learn to accept what arises in you rather than run, wanting something to be different than what it is. This causes stress. When we run from the uncomfortable, our bodies will feel stress. That's another thing that's practiced in the yoga philosophy, is that it helps us learn how to sit in the discomfort so that we can start learning how to manage it in a healthier way rather than bottle it up and run from it and just keep it where it is. That's not what we're supposed to do. Again, it becomes trapped and we turn our healthy bodies into pain bodies. We turn our playgrounds into battlefields. Get it? Okay. So let's talk about some steps to suppressing the ego. All right. Which is what you see towards the bottom of the diagram. Steps to suppressing the ego. Number 1, be aware. That means feel. Remember I said we need to take time to sit and just feel what is going on in our bodies. Do a body scan. So be aware. Because you have to be aware when the ego is trying to take over so that you can understand, what do I need to do to bring this down and suppress it? So number 2, step out of the negative thought. And we're going to talk about ways to do that when we talk more about narratives in a later episode. Step out of the negative thought. That has to do with acceptance, right? Remember I said, let's not run from it. Next, breathe. Breathing allows us to take it in. Learn to take deep breaths. Learn deep breathing. Learn different types of breathing. Because there are different breathing techniques that do different things to the body. So breathe, or go and learn how to. Number 4, bring your consciousness to your surroundings. Choose to act. Choose to act. Bring your consciousness to your surroundings. So don't just let things happen. Sit and assess what is going on so that you're not just reacting, you're responding. And you're responding, remember what I said responding was? We're taking time out to actually not be impulsive and be able to make a decision so that we are responding instead of reacting. So that is our diagram of the pain body. I'll make sure that a link gets placed in the show notes so that that's something that you could use as a resource to look back on when needed. So I want to talk about really quick, give you some tips for identifying and addressing the emotional pain body, because it's important to pay attention and address the pain body in order to maintain our overall well-being. So first thing, pay attention to your physical sensations. Okay. So notice when you are experiencing tension, discomfort, pain in your body, or try to identify any underlying emotions that may be contributing to the sensations. This includes paying attention to, again, your intake. Remember the people that you hang around, the things you listen to, the things you watch, the things you read. Watching people argue, having conflict, watching and taking in violence or abuse of any kind places stress on the body and can feed into the pain body. Okay. Number 2, second tip for identifying and addressing the emotional pain body. We have to recognize that we all experience pain and anger as human beings. It is inevitable. Okay. But the trick is not letting those negative emotions get the best of us. The pain body is the old emotional pain that is carried around inside of us and grows by using these emotions to control our thinking. All right. So for example, while you're around some negative person who likes to gossip, complain, bicker, etc., if you are not emotionally well, then your emotional pain that you are carrying within you will grow and intensify by that negative person's emotional pain. Again, they feed off each other. All right. So you got to understand that we all as human beings experience pain and anger because you need to be able to properly assess who you need to be befriending and spending a lot of time with and who you need to just say hi and bye and help when needed. Okay. Number 3, practice mindfulness. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment with an open and non-judgmental attitude. This can help us become more aware of our emotional and physical experiences and learn to respond to them in a more healthier and balanced way. And of course, we're going to be talking about mindfulness a lot in future episodes. Number 4, engage in self-care. Taking care of ourselves is crucial to maintaining our physical and emotional well-being. This can include activities like exercise, getting enough sleep, eating well, finding time to relax and recharge. You have to learn how to create boundaries for yourself, and that is learning how to get comfortable saying no. Yes. That is for all you people that struggle with the word no, all you people that find it hard to put your superhero cape down. So yeah, you have to learn how to take care of yourself, and that part of that is creating boundaries. Okay. And then lastly, seek support. Seek support. If you are struggling with emotional pain and are finding it difficult to cope on your own, consider seeking support from a therapist or a trusted professional, and with the hopes of helping you explore and process your emotions in a safe and supportive environment. And let me tell you this, if you do not find the therapist that connects with you or that you feel comfortable with after the first or second time, don't stop. Keep going. Keep trying. It will eventually come. You'll eventually find the one that clicks. You know, I always used to say it's like finding a good church. Sometimes you got to take a few trips. And that's the same thing with a therapist. You're not going to click with everybody, and that's fine. Just continue on the journey. There's somebody out there for you. So if you need help, get it, okay? And there's nothing wrong with going back to therapy for maintenance. Like, you don't always have to have something wrong with you or some mental illness. You don't have to wait till it gets to that point. Sometimes you just need somebody to just see if am I on the right track? Sometimes you just need somebody for that, and that's fine. Okay. So I am going to make sure that I have some various resources that will assist you if you feel like you are struggling with your mental health and emotional pain. And if you like more information and support in that area, there are many resources available. I'm going to put a few in the show notes so that you'll have access to them. All you have to do is go back to this show and they will be there. So you can go and there's some links that you can click on that'll take you to some web pages and things like that. And there's some numbers that you could call if you need support. So I'll make sure that information gets put in the show notes. But in conclusion, the emotional pain body is an important concept to understand and address, which is why I wanted to make sure I brought it to light so that you can become knowledgeable of it because it is real, it exists in us. And by paying attention to our physical sensations and taking care of ourselves, we can better manage and heal from the pain that we experience so that it doesn't lead to suffering because that's what we want to avoid. Remember, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. All right. Um, Again, don't forget I've placed those resources in the show notes. Remember to subscribe, and y'all remember to share, because you never know who needs this. Okay. Also, it is time for our inspirational quote. So let's see what we got. Oh, let me give you a call to action. I almost forgot. And you know I got to give you some homework. So call to action. We know we're still working on our healing playgrounds, the design of those, right? And remember with these episodes, y'all, I'm giving you tools. Start writing some things down and then you try it before, try something before the next show or the next episode. And see how these things are working and start writing some of the things down that you hear. So, because these are tools, this is how you start building your healing playground. This is how you come off of the battlefield so we can start playing and laughing again. Remember, we can start swinging instead of putting shields up, right? Taking knives out. Okay. So call to action. Okay, identify your schemas. Remember, schemas are thoughts. So identify your thoughts and how your ego may be attached to the narrative. Just jot some thoughts on the paper and see how you can, if you can detect or identify how your ego may be attached to that narrative around that thought. Okay, you'll be surprised. And go back into this episode so you can hear again what the ego is all about before you try to do that assignment if you're confused in any way. Okay. All right. Inspirational quote. Here it goes. To thrive in life, you need 3 bones: a wishbone, a backbone, and a funny bone. That's cute. To thrive in life, you need 3 bones: a wishbone, a backbone, and a funny bone. All right, y'all. So let's go out and fetch those bones. All right, y'all. This healing playground is closed for now, but continue working on the design of your own. And remember, outside of laughter, you need to eat, pray, love, heal, and repeat it all over again.